Hello and welcome back to Gameday Tarps episode 2. Today we're going over free agency signings around the league, and we'll dive into probably some related content in terms of trades and some of the stuff that's going on, but for sure we're just going to cover some of the main free agent signings that have gone on in the league so far. I think we're going to do this alphabetical order because it's much easier to follow it that way. So let's jump right into the Anaheim Ducks. And, being a Tampa fan, I was sad to see Killorn go there, but it's cool to see that another ex-Tampa guy, Gudas, went there. And then Zucker, what are your thoughts on those three?
I think Killorn, definitely one of their biggest signings for sure. I don't follow Gudas or Zucker too much to give an opinion on that. I think Anaheim could probably pick up some defense help. For sure would help them out. And they definitely need to get Gibson gone. For sure. Get something for him. He wants out.
Yeah, whether that trade request was as real as they said. His agent came in saying, no, he didn't ask for a trade or whatever, but who knows. The guy's obviously done playing there regardless of whether he says it or not. I mean, he's been losing there his whole career. He's a good enough goalie to have a chance to win, and the fact that they're hanging on to him just seems pointless at this point in time.
Sell him for picks for next year maybe, but I think they should definitely bolster up that defense. Maybe some more experience on that team. They are still fairly young. I mean, yeah, I guess Killorn, good as Zucker, is the experience, but I don't think Anaheim's, they're not going to be a competitive team next year still, so.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And I think, we were looking at their RFAs there, and they're got some guys that they need to take care of on that side for their future.
Yeah.
We can go to Arizona, who really just only signed Kerfoot and Bukestad. So they kind of short up their middle six forward group. Other than that, we know where Arizona is. Their own top prospect doesn't even want to be there. He's not even committing to come. He's going back to college to play instead, where he's probably going to make more money. So, I mean, that's a tough one for them.
Yeah, Arizona, they haven't been competitive for years. They're not really doing anything to change that, help themselves in that in any way.
And I'm not sure anyone wants to go there. I think that's part of it, too. I don't think guys genuinely want to go there. And, Arizona's a sweet place, but you're playing in a college rink.
And you can't even sell that out.
Yeah, you can't even sell it out. So, if they could get a bigger arena and proper fans and in a better situation for themselves, I think that's what they would prefer as players. Like the players coming there, not obviously the team prefers that because they're lost, but the players going there want to wait until they're established, which probably won't happen. I'm assuming that they're going to move before they ever get established there. But I think, they're pretty much ready to be shipped on to the next place. We move on to Boston now. So they bring back Kevin Shattenkirk, who was just gone for a short period, Milan Lucic, and then they signed Morgan Geekie as well.
They lost Taylor Hall,
Bertuzzi.
I'm pretty sure Bergeron's in the free agency.
Probably retiring, most likely, him and Krejci.
I don't know. Do you think that team right there alone can bring them back into a playoff spot? Or
no, I think they're. I mean, it seemed like they traded Hall to get Bertuzzi. That's what everyone has been saying, and they also let Orlov walk essentially to try and get Bertuzzi, and then somehow they don't end up with Bertuzzi, and they don't end up with Hall, and they don't end up with Orlov. And now, to say that they're a playoff team maybe isn't true. Can Marchand, Pasternak, and Allmark, Hampus Lindholm, and McAvoy carry them to a playoff spot? Or are the better younger teams, the Sabres, the Sens, and the Red Wings coming up, are they going to take their spot finally? Because someone's going to make it out of those three at least. And if someone's going to fall based on the free agency, it's going to be the Bruins, in my opinion, of the guys who made it last year: Florida, Tampa, and Toronto, as well as Boston.
Yeah, and I mean, Boston doesn't seem like they're going in a route to try to get any younger. Mm-hmm. They're trying to keep that core Boston team that's been solid for the last few years together still. No, I think they're going to be a mid-tier team this year.
I think so too.
Maybe just not make the playoffs kind of team.
Yeah, well, we're obviously can move on to Buffalo now, where they signed Connor Clifton and Eric Johnson. Cool story for Eric Johnson. He got a lot of love from Colorado after being there for 13 years. The only team he's ever played for, the longest tenured Avalanche player. So it's good to see that he still, found a home in the league and got some pretty good money. And to try and help, like we were just talking about, Buffalo make the playoffs and take that next step. And we follow up Buffalo with Calgary. Unfortunately for you, being a Calgary fan, there is nothing positive going on in the free agent market and a whole lot of negative in the trade market in terms of who they may have to get rid of.
Yeah, they've honestly been one of the most disappointing teams to watch during the offseason, in my opinion. They have guys that want out, and the only guy they've shipped out is Toffoli. I think these guys are having their way with the new GM in Calgary. I think if they've showed no interest in being here now, then why keep them, you know? I mean, I know you're probably waiting for the right trade, but your signings aren't really doing it for you.
Yeah, that's true. I think that they're struggling to try and find trade partners. I think that they're so focused on their trades that have to get done and rebuilding their roster through those trades that they've actually not even been able to really focus on the free agency market because they don't know how many dollars they're going to have. They don't know who they're committed to, and they don't know who's committed to them. So it puts them in a spot where they have no idea where they're really going at the moment.
Well, and Conroy could be in a tough position too as the new GM. The owner of the team has said that they don't want to go the rebuild route, right? So,
which makes it tough when a GM is trying to do the right things for the organization and take the right steps, and the ownership's kind of getting in the way of what could be a quick rebuild and really get back on their feet.
And the time is now for that.
Yeah.
Either you trade for young prospects and some picks, or you trade those guys and try to build your team off the 2024 draft or 2025.
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully they can figure out which way they want to go as an organization, and then that way they can actually get on the right track again, because just 2-3 years ago they were like a cup favorite with the roster they had, and now to see this downfall, unfortunately due to management decisions in terms of coaches hired and poor coaching decisions in terms of getting fired or getting banished from the league due to racism or whatever it was, like they just haven't had a consistent coach. And I think players, it starts to bleed into them, and then they get fed up, and then you have this problem where your veterans don't want to be there, and you have no choice really but to kind of move the bad apples on, because it will affect your young guys and it will seep in a negative way into your organization, and that's just something that they can't afford.
They're just not exciting to watch anymore. They don't have that fire in them anymore, that drive. Hopefully things change for him this year, and I hope Conroy's got some stuff brewing up his sleeve soon, very soon, hopefully.
Yeah, they need it very soon. We can jump into Carolina now, from the least busy team to one of the most busy teams. They get the number one defender on the market in Orlov. They get probably a top 10 forward on the market in Bunting. They shore up their goaltending with Anderson and Ranta again. And then they have Jesper Fast as well, who they get coming back as well. So really, I think that they've done some sweet moves for their team, adding some more offensive punch behind Brent Burns, and really adding a guy who just absolutely runs everybody over every chance he gets in Dmitry Orlov there. So to me, they've done fantastic moves to continue to be a team that is making it, to the Eastern Conference Final almost every year, or at least, a very competitive team in the second round every year, and causing a lot of problems in the playoffs.
Yeah, a team that honestly doesn't really need to do much. I don't know if they've lost too much to free agency, but I think picking up Bunting was huge. I mean, you got a guy that could be a pest, right? So
for sure,
teams definitely need that to get under skin on the other teams, right? Yeah, I think they'll be exciting to watch this year, hopefully, and maybe they can win a cup soon. I think they're doing good things there.
Yeah, they're definitely on the cusp of a cup, for sure. If they can keep this going, then I think that they'll be just fine. We can jump into Chicago, who is almost as bad as Calgary. Now, they've done a lot of trading, so we'll give them a break on the free agency side that they haven't really been active. But they did add a quality player in Ryan Donato for a pretty low cap for a couple of years at 2-year, $2 million. So I really have no complaints about that. With everyone else that they've added, the fact that they're, again, mentioned this in episode 1, that they are not trying to be a competitive team, but they are trying to build a team that is going to help Bedard become a superstar. They're going to put the right guys around him. They're going to win some games for him. They're going to help show him what it's like to, how to win in the league, play the right way, but they're not going to win enough games to get outside probably a top 10 pick, which is not, they don't want to be outside that anyways.
I mean, yeah, you don't need to make the playoffs right away after acquiring Bedard. I mean, you hope that he can build with the guys that they put around him. Guys such as Hall, Foligno, Corey Perry, who has definitely seen his fair share of playoffs. Definitely the downs of playoffs.
Yeah, well, the good news is for Chicago, they're definitely not winning a cup with Perry, because 3 straight years, 3 different teams, 3 straight losses in the final. It doesn't get any worse than that. So they're definitely not winning the cup, so that's good for them and their draft picks. Next up, we have the Colorado Avalanche. Some pretty cool stories in the Duran going back to play with McKinnon, that's a nice story. Adding Miles Wood, I think for maybe too long of years, but at a good dollar amount for a guy who's just going to bang and crash every night. Jack Johnson they brought back, and Cogliano they brought back as well. So to me, with the future signing, I'm sure of Ross Colton, and then, getting back some of their guys from injury, they're going to be just fine again. I mean, they're probably going to go deep in the playoffs. They're going to be a team that you don't want to line up with the guys that they've added to try and make themselves a cut above the rest.
Yeah, team that, again, probably another team that doesn't need to do much because they've been a powerhouse for a couple of years now. Yeah, my favorite signing here is for sure Jonathan Duran. What they did in Halifax was pretty awesome, so I'm hoping that they can rekindle that chemistry they had in Halifax. That'd be special.
Yeah, I think that would be cool, especially for Duran. I think that he's a guy, being a Lightning fan, seeing how high we drafted him, seeing how we traded him, and the guy we traded him for in Sergachev take off on his career, win a couple cups. I still have a part of me that wants to see Duran succeed in his career more than he's been able to this point.
It'd be something special if he could do it with his ex-teammate there, McKinnon.
All right, on to Columbus, who I've noted here are apparently worse than Calgary. They have 0 signings at this point.
Fantilli signed.
That's true. They did sign their draft picks. But as of the free agent market, where they had no control over any of the players available, they got 0 signings so far. So I think that they have known that they were, they built their roster. They've got guys who want to be there. And now they've added their couple draft picks, and especially Fantilli, who they're probably going to want in right away. They know basically, where they were, and they're probably not going to still be a playoff team, but at least they're going to be better. And I think they want to see how that team plays out, because they did have a lot of guys under contract for the most part, for the ones that they wanted to keep. Up next, we have the Dallas Stars. Probably have one of the better signings of the offseason, someone who I think will really help them, and that's Duchesne. And then they also added Sam Steele and Craig Smith, who I think are some decent depth signings. But definitely going back to Duchesne, I mean, when you can get a player who's been bought out and you can get him at that cap hit they got him at, and hopefully he'll come in and contribute. He's right in the age group of your Seguins and your Bens, and hopefully he can come in and just be another veteran leader who's had a pretty decent career, has been to the Stanley Cup final with Nashville, and who can hopefully contribute to that team and help them get over the hump in their division as well.
Same age group as the Bens and the Seguins, but let's hope he's not in the same downfall as the Seguins and Bens.
That's true, because they have been trending downwards for sure themselves in their own career, with their young guys having to step up and definitely help them out at this stage. Probably to one of the more busier teams now for sure, along with Carolina, is Detroit. I think, being a Tampa fan, knowing Stevie Y, this was him saying, all right, it's time to go.
Enough's enough.
Enough's enough. The rebuild's over. Playoffs are what we want. They get guys who can get them there. They get JT Compher, who may end up on their second line, but I think he's going to be a better third line guy for them. They get Justin Hall, who, finally won a playoff round with Toronto. And, you can hate on him all you want, Toronto fans, but the guy's a shot blocking machine on the penalty kill, and sometimes when you give him that role and that's all he needs to play, he's going to excel at it. Gostisbehere on the other side, who, there you go, now you have a power play quarterback to really help Mo Seider not have to take on so much offensive responsibility and just learn how to be a great two-way defender rather than trying to produce too much offense. And then you get Daniel Sprong, good depth winger, 2 goaltenders in Alex Leon and James Reimer, who will be fighting for the backup position to Husso, and then Christian Fischer, another depth forward.
Yeah, I'm not really seeing much improvement. Like, there's a little bit of improvement, but I don't see anything that jumps out at me with this team still. I think their defense is still lackluster. I don't see Husso being that guy, that true number one guy. I think, they definitely need more on the blue line and their goalies, to me, for sure, for this team to actually do anything or even make it to the playoffs, in my opinion.
I think they're hoping with Seider that they get Edvinsson, who makes a step. Hopefully he can come in. And then obviously, then now they've signed Hall and Gostisbehere some depth. And then I think Reimer's not going to win the backup position, but Leon is a guy who won the starting position in Florida for a minute to start the playoffs over Bobrovsky. So it's like, okay, well, maybe it's worth a flyer on this guy. Maybe he takes it from Husso and he runs with the starting position. But that's a lot to ask of a guy who only had like 20-something games and kind of got hot. He could just never have that kind of form again to finish his whole career. You never know.
Yeah, we'll have another Jordan Binnington in our hands.
Could be, very well. The Edmonton Oilers. I do like their one big signing, and that's Connor Brown. Another team, like the Avalanche, who are lining up a winger with a guy he played junior with, which is Connor Brown with Connor McDavid. They also signed Drake Caggiula and then depth forward Lane Pedersen. But again, Connor Brown, I mean, he's a penalty killer. He hopefully can contribute 10 to 20 goals, probably around the 15 mark. And you never really know where that goal total could end playing on the power play with McDavid.
I still think they lack defense. I hope Evan Bouchard can keep up his last year when he started to get hot. I hope he can stay hot coming into the next season.
If he doesn't get traded.
Yeah, that too. Their goalies are probably still a little bit of a concern to them. Jack Campbell wasn't living up to expectations.
Not at all, no. And I think, yeah, when you do hear about the goalies out there in the trade market, the Hellebucks, the Gibsons, that's another team that jumps off the page that is being aggressive towards acquiring one of those two is the Oilers. Because, yes, Skinner was technically an all-star goaltender, but he was supposed to be your backup. And what if he plays like a backup next year? He played like a backup in the playoffs. Yeah. So what if he starts playing like a backup for the season? And then you have Jack Campbell, who unfortunately really has nailed his own nail in the coffin that he just can't do it for a season. He can't be a number one for a whole season. And then you're looking at, okay, now who's going to take the reins here? They just need a number one, and that's what they got to go out and trade for.
You know what I see in Jack Campbell is I see a Cam Talbot 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
A guy that had one hot season and then just dropped the following.
Yeah, and just, a perennial backup that kind of hit his prime, had a good year, then went into his contract year and just gets absolutely blown out of proportion because the goaltending position's so hard to nail down, and then here he is, basically looking to be shipped out for pennies as long as they can get a better goalie to replace him. And now we have Florida Panthers.
Pick up Ekman Larson for 1 year with a huge decrease in pay.
Yeah, well, with the buyout, I mean, it allows players to, he's going to be paid for, 8 years now or something from the Canucks. So they do love their buyouts up there in Vancouver. So you know that when he's, now making money for the next couple of years, he doesn't have to take as big of a contract now to play on a winner. And obviously, who better than the guys who just lost in the final to try and go help win another one, or not another one, but win now.
Exactly. I think Evan Rodriguez, helps out with that offensively.
Yeah, I think he's a good pickup for them as well. Obviously playing in Colorado and Pittsburgh, he's been around the McKinnons, the Crosbys, the winning guys. It helps to bring him in and just be a good depth piece for that team, I think. Other than that, they sign Mikkola on defense, he's just a tall beast. He's going to be a third pairing guy. Hopefully he can. I think they're trying to go in for Gudas' position, who obviously they lost to Anaheim, but with less aggression and less penalties because he did hurt them at points in the playoffs with his undisciplined play that he's known for. So, Mikkola, he's just sturdy, he's quiet, he does his job, and that's about where he sits. They did replace Leon with Alex Stolars just for a 1-year deal, and they also added some more depth D with Mike Riley and Kulikov. So Florida did not too bad for themselves, I don't think, in the offseason so far. We go to the Los Angeles Kings now, who just decided to go all goaltender and then bring back Lewis by bringing in Talbot and Rittich as their goaltenders. Obviously, we all know about the Dubois trade and that they have shifted their lineup quite a bit, but they brought in Rittich and Talbot to go for the goaltender position there. The next two teams on the list didn't really inspire much of a conversation either in the Minnesota Wild and the Montreal Canadiens, so we're going to hop right over to the Nashville Predators now, where they obviously got the big fish center on the market in Ryan O'Reilly. They did Luke Shen, they get Gus Nyquist, they re-sign Glass, and they re-sign Alex Carrier. So, in terms of O'Reilly, I think that he's a guy who, they wanted to change their culture. They wanted, a legit captain in this league to come in and help shepherd their young guys through because they liked the way their young guys ended the year for them. And I think that they brought Luke Shen in for the same reason and for a guy who, they got rid of their tough guy in Jeannot. So I think that he's a guy that they wanted to look at to be like, okay, here's some toughness to protect some of these young guys that we want to bring through and have play for us over the next couple of years.
Yeah, New Jersey kind of stayed quiet, just kind of re-signing their RFAs.
That's what it seems like. Yeah, they just stayed the course on their own path. So I guess that leaves up to the Islanders, who are wild, apparently, and just throwing out the biggest deals of the free agency, even though to guys that they already had, but 2 7-year and a 4-year deal. Mayfield gets 7 by 3.5. Engvall gets 7 by 3. Varlamov gets 4 by 2 3/4. And then they signed Julian Gauthier to just a minor deal for 2 years, basically. But I don't know what they were doing. What are your thoughts on those crazy years?
Engvall for sure is insane. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's worth that length at all. Varlamov's old. I don't think he's going to be worth that 2.775. Probably well within halfway of that year span. That's going to be too much. I like Julian Gauthier though. I think that's a solid pickup for sure. Started out for the Rangers and then went to Ottawa.
He's been bounced around. He's been all over the place.
Now he's on the island. But I've always liked Gauthier.
Yeah, and I think same thing. I think with Varlamov, maybe they're just looking at, because we were talking about this earlier, like Sorokin likes having him. They're both Russian. You're signing Varlamov essentially till he's 39 years old, and I'm sure it's like maybe he's making $4 million this year, and then in the last year he's like $775K. Like, I don't know what they're going to break it down to over the 4 years. I didn't look into it, but I guess you just think, okay, is Sorokin happy having another Russian goaltender? I think that's really what they boiled it down to. Sorokin's their guy. They just needed a backup. Why not keep it in-house? But I'm totally with you. Like, for Mayfield and Engvall, it's nice to keep players that are your players around, that know your system, and that want to be there. But 7 years for Mayfield, who's maybe a second pair, most likely a third pair on most good teams, and then Engvall, who's like top 9 or bottom 6 forward on a lot of teams as well. He's quick, but he doesn't really get the needle moving in terms of success. And then you lock them into long time with a lot of money, and your team's old, you have no cap, and here you are. Yes, they're on the younger-ish side, in their late 20s, both these guys, but just to me, it doesn't move the needle at all for them winning. I just don't know what New York's idea is going forward here.
No, they're not doing nothing this year.
Yeah, I don't see it. I guess that moves us on to, I think, what's going to be our last team for this episode. We're going to do basically free agency part 1, we're going to call this, and then we're going to do a part 2. And we're just going to do the Rangers last because it's weird to do one New York team without the other when you're talking about them. So you obviously then jump down to the Rangers, and here they are with Blake Wheeler, Eric Gustafson, Nick Bonino, and Belzile as their 4 guys that they've added that are notable. I mean, Wheeler, what a steal for them. He noted he wanted to go to the East. He wanted to go where it was easier to travel. So there you go. There he goes, right in the middle of the hub of New York. And he gets to play for a big time arena, and he gets to have a chance at potentially winning a cup there, which I think is good for him because he's been through, like, they showed that he was the last, like you mentioned to me, he was the last Thrasher on the team from that era, and only 3 remaining Thrashers to still play in the league. Exactly, and so for him, when you think about the Thrashers and the Jets organizations, you don't exactly think of success. So here he gets a chance to go to a Rangers team that's good, that has a chance to win. He takes an extremely friendly deal because of his buyout situation, and he's got a chance to really attempt to win. Yeah, I mean, I think they don't really gain the same scoring skill that they had last year with the loss of Tarasenko and Patrick Kane. So kind of like a lackluster signings to me, but Wheeler was big. And Eric Gustafson is probably, he's a good guy to have as your top 6 for sure. And then here they are taking another ex-Flame with Connor Mackey, who you always like to see a guy that might not be as good as in your organization, but do something else somewhere. So I'm hoping for big things for the kid, but I don't expect him to actually make that team right out of training camp there, day 1. So yeah, you never know with guys coming out of college. For those that Mackey and have kind of followed him, he was highly rated coming out of college, never really got the opportunity. With us talking just earlier about how Calgary was so successful, their top 6 was set, guys couldn't get in. Now all of a sudden these guys are 24, 25, 26, and they all have to find homes elsewhere just to try and make it. For us, that is the end of the free agency talk. Now we're just going to jump over to our segment that we've been doing, which is the new tarps for the Gameday Tarps podcast. And this time we're going to talk about the Flyers, who have unveiled their absolutely identical uniforms. They have not really changed much about them. You know, they've added a few stylistic notes to put in there, but other than that, to me, do you notice anything different? I think they're pretty much the exact same.
No, it's the same jersey, but nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's when you think Flyers, you definitely just think that color scheme. So, I mean, keeping it simple, keeping it close to home.
I agree.
I guess you can't go wrong.
Yep. When you know what your brand is and you stay on brand and you make it clean and you make it classy and you make it look good and your fans love to rep it, then there's nothing better to have. All right, well, that's it for episode 2 of Gameday Tarps Podcast Free Agency Part 1.
And as always, feel free to rate and review. Thanks.
Bye for now.